I guess the other part of this is you're talking about keep the business private. You're saying he's messing up the strategy, but the numbers are the numbers. And he's trying to fix a numerical problem that she has, a math problem that she has.
Right. I agree with most of what you were saying, Solomon. I don't think the problem is that he spoke it out loud. I think the problem is that he singled out black men. In other words, there is a sexism component to this race. There was a sexism component to the Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump race. Right, if Trump wins, he will have only ever beaten women. I can't give you a number, but sexism is in the mix here. But it's not black men specifically. I think it's men, not black men. And that, I think, is part of where Obama went wrong.
Oh boy, guys. Does Barack Obama think he is the king of all blacks? Like, who in the world does Barack Obama think that he is? I mean, this should outrage Americans, but particularly black men. I want you guys to listen to what Barack Obama is saying and let me know what you guys think on this one. By the way, if you haven't already, please take a second, hit the like button for the video, subscribe to the channel. Check this out.
Is Obama in the wrong here with how he's talking about black men in particular and singling them out in this way?
Yeah, let's start from here. He is still the greatest living retail politician. He's objectively a top 15 president, but even he can swing and miss sometimes. And here he swung and missed. Here's what he did. Harris has been very strategic about when and how she's spoken about gender and race. And he stepped on that. And when she hasn't spoken about it, he stepped on that message. And I think also with those comments, and there's more to this, but let me just start with this, is that he forgets, at least in that moment, that she doesn't get the benefit of being a historic first the way he did. She's a historic first woman if she wins.
Maybe that's part of the problem, that's what he's saying. Why does...
I think I have a very hard time accepting strategy and Kamala Harris. Like, putting strategy and Kamala Harris in the same sentence is really awkward for me because I don't see Kamala Harris as being a strategist. A lot of people question whether or not Barack Obama is black. So, one of the arguments here is that, Barack Obama was the first black man in the Oval Office in the White House. And that is up for debate. A lot of people are questioning Barack Obama's birth certificate, his origin, his recent attacks on Donald Trump and the Bible. Was that attack that Barack Obama placed on Donald Trump more of an attack on the Bible than it was Donald Trump? There's a lot of commentary from Barack Obama that's come out as of late that has literally been a lot of source of controversy. And now here we are talking about firsts, right? The first black woman to be president of the United States if Kamala Harris were to win the presidential election. First of all, okay, sure, I'll give her that. She's a woman, I think. But her being black, I can't give her that one. What do y'all think? Is Kamala Harris black to you? Because I don't see her as that. She has claimed Indian heritage, and we see from the photos clearly there's Indian heritage there. There's Jamaican heritage there from her father. Her father says that, hey, we may even have an Irish grandfather that was a former slave owner. Anyway, I don't see where the heritage from the black side of the perspective even exists for her.
Why doesn't she get the benefit?
Well, first of all, we have to remember that this is a thing. Like, Barack Obama has a history of kind of chastising specifically black men. And like, the question is whether what he said is relevant, right? Because there are a few black men, like there are a few white men who are more conservative than black women, and more white men are conservative than white women. But the point is, does this work, right? And there's no evidence that it's true or that it works. And he doesn't do that with, like, you've never heard him say, why don't white women stop being racist and vote for me or Kamala Harris, or they don't talk to Hispanic voters or LGBTQ voters. It's only specifically black men that he takes this tact that doesn't work.
Why do you think that
is? Because
Now that's interesting. That is an interesting point. Now, there's a lot that I could disagree with what he just said, but it is interesting how Barack Obama decides to target black men on who they should vote for. rather than, other nationalities, rather than other demographics. Why only the black men is Barack Obama's focus narrowed down and catering towards? That's a really good question here.
Know why?
No,
Because
tell me.
the second most loyal, the most progressive group of men on the planet, they don't care about. They assume that they have their vote and they don't have to do anything for it. And the point of this is that if you don't vote for Kamala Harris and you're a black man, something must be wrong with you. That is the subtext of everything that they're saying.
Well, this is
And this is the thing that really just irks me. Every time I hear it, it just really irks me. It's like, dude, this is not a popularity contest. This is not a I get it. Don't get me wrong. I actually voted for Barack Obama back in the day, with 2008 or 2016. I think it was. Hold on. Was it two? Yeah, in 2008, I voted for Barack Obama, just because he was black. I didn't know anything about politics, but I was under the impression that he was black. And I even questioned, is this guy really black? Well, he was the darkest guy I had ever seen in the White House. You got my vote. But that is ignorant, to vote for someone purely because of the color of their skin. It's borderline racist. I gotta admit it. It's borderline racist. But given the history of this country, I saw it as a win for black people. Being more educated today, it's like, at the end of the day, the color of the skin really doesn't matter. What really matters is how are the policies that they're going to push and support and back and veto? How are those going to affect me and my family? How are these policies that they're in support of going to affect the direction of the country? Because it's not like a white man being in the White House can't help black people, okay? It's not like a black woman being in the White House will necessarily help black people. It really matters about what policies that they support, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to dictate who gets help and the ultimate direction of the United States of America.
What I would say to this, because I was there when the NABJ interviewed Kamala Harris in Philadelphia, and what Kamala Harris said then was that you asked that question with the assumption that black men are in somebody's pocket. You can't make that assumption. Black men are just like any other group. They have their interests, and I'm working to get their vote. I don't expect to get it because I am black. I am working to get their vote. And that is what she said. And so I think we have to focus on what she said about black men. And I think we also have to focus on the fact that most black men are going to vote for Kamala Harris anyway. That is the reality. But I think that in talking to black people every day, which I do as a radio host, I've heard some black men say, I'm not voting for her because she is a woman. I have heard that. And I think that is reprehensible. Okay. I got to be honest.
Now, I rarely listen to the radio. And when I do, it's really annoying because I hate the commercials. Most of the commercials are these ambulance chaser lawyers trying to get people to call them if you've been hurt in an accident. But the thing that really irks me lately is these political commercials, these political ads that are on there. They're all bashing Donald Trump. They're all basically pushing this underhanded pitch type of narrative toward black people should be voting for Kamala Harris. And there's really no backing behind it. The policy arguments in these ads are weak. And some of the ads that I've heard about, or that Kamala Harris, this message is supported by Kamala Harris, or, this message was approved by Kamala Harris. A lot of these were blatant lies being told in these ads. And the thing is that a lot of people, most people, they listen to mainstream liberal media and they don't question anything that they hear. So the only thing that is really influencing them is, it's if they're listening to the news, they're being influenced by clearly left-leaning news outlets that have a apparent agenda. And then they're also listening to a lot of these ads that are almost blatant lies. And no one even takes the time to do any research to figure out, is this even true? You know, half of the things that we're being told are just blatant lies. And I also do think that it is entirely ignorant to classify an entire race of people to think that because you're black, you're just going to vote for another black person. I will say that unfortunately, a lot of people aren't doing their homework, and a lot of people will be simply, they'll be corralled by what everybody else is doing, right? And if people in your circle are for a particular person, I will admit it does take a little bit of a backbone to be able to say, I disagree. I don't agree with that person. And I had some pretty heated conversations personally about why I don't support Kamala Harris among other black people. And what was interesting, though, is that there were some people, what I realized is that the people who were most quiet in those conversations were people who were willing and able to listen to reason. The other folks that decided to argue with me, they had no or challenge me. I don't want to say argue. Arguing is a little bit harsh, but the other people who challenged what I was saying, basically, they were brainwashed people who didn't have legitimate arguments or facts to base their arguments upon. They were just hell bent on voting for anyone who's not Trump or voting for the quote unquote first black woman to be the president of the United States. That was the whole basis of their argument. So for those people, it's almost like you can't help them. It's like when I run into people who are just like, they hate Donald Trump with no actual factual basis. They just hate him because he's Donald Trump and because the media has taught them to hate him. Some of these people just can't be helped. Some of these people who just vote for Kamala because she's black or because she's a woman, some of these people can't be helped. It's like when you're just so ignorant and you choose to remain ignorant and you block out any legitimate arguments and you're unwilling to listen to actual facts, what can you do in those cases?
Okay, so he's heard it. I mean, are we, when I say we, I mean the collective we as the country, afraid to just talk about a thing?
I think
is
you
Obama
talk
saying,
about it, but if you
calling
summon
a thing
Barack Obama to fix a problem, you have to wonder if this fixes a problem. If I am interested in getting Kamala Harris elected, then I am upset because he hurt the thing, the strategy that she was employing to win.
Well, I think part of what has to happen, though, is that you have to have that conversation in private. There are some things you talk about in the barbershop when there's no cameras, right? There's some things that you talk about at home. There's some things that are family business, and I think the mistake that Barack Obama made was to take family business in the street.
I didn't have a problem.
Let me let Coleman in there.
Shaming voters is a terrible idea. It was bad when Hillary Clinton did it with deplorables. It was bad when Mitt Romney did it on the eve of the election. Even if there's a grain of truth to it and there is the occasional radio caller that's going to admit to that sentiment, let's actually look at the fact that Biden was struggling with black voters, and that was a topic of conversation over and over again. So it's not about sexism.
But is there any limit to what the Democrats will do to get a vote? I personally feel like there's no bar that's too low to stoop below for a Democrat to try and get the vote. Shaming voters into voting for or against someone is a strategy that I've seen time and time again, which from the Democratic Party, which I don't really see that strategy. I don't really see that same strategy being employed from the Donald Trump campaign. I'm not going to say that other conservative or Republican candidates in the past haven't done it, but I just don't hear it from Donald Trump. I'm hearing more of his argument based on policies, based on actual things that have been done by presidential hopefuls and the actual president of the United States, Joe Biden, what they have actually done, rather than making it a cultural or a racial push, or basing the argument, or even shaming voters to vote for someone or against someone. I'm not really hearing that from Donald Trump. I'm hearing from Donald Trump more like, hey, the arguments related to the direction of economy. Like how well is the economy doing right now? How much tax you're paying right now? The rate of inflation and where inflation is right now, where inflation was under Donald Trump's administration. Potential tariffs that would be implemented to help offset the cost of or the overseas competition from international businesses and just other countries in general. China, for example, the immigration concerns, the immigration issues that we're actively experiencing right now. You cannot ignore these facts, and none of these are shaming voters. They're literally legitimate problems that everyone is facing, whether you want to realize it or not. Trump's arguments are based on the issues rather than race. And I think it's actually a smart approach, not only because Donald Trump is white. If Donald Trump were to really were to fight fire with fire, and were to talk more about race, they would then be able to use that and go in on him for, the low hanging fruit. Oh, Donald Trump's a white supremacist, and that is really something that Donald Trump shouldn't do, because that just makes the argument way too easy for the left. But also, it's not even a valid argument. It's really not a valid argument. I think Trump's doing it right. I think that, and I'm not saying Trump is perfect. He is definitely far from perfect. But if I have to choose between these two candidates, there's no way in the world I'm going to vote for Kamala Harris. There's absolutely no way.
But hold on one second. Let me take a look at this. Let's take a look at the numbers, because I think just to see what we're talking about here, there's been a progressive decline in overall support among Black men and, to a lesser degree, Black women for the Democratic nominee. Biden. And
I love it because, generally speaking, CNN is pro Democrat. But in this poll from, look here, September 20 to October 6th, there is a clear decline for Kamala Harris when you look at the Democratic candidate versus the Republican candidate. And this is CNN admitting how weak the campaign is looking for Kamala Harris going forward. This is some pretty damning evidence that Kamala Harris is really losing some steam. She's losing a tremendous amount of momentum, and it looks like the boost that she got from this honeymoon period is really running out of gas here.
Was doing better among Black men than Harris appears to be right now, based on some of the better polling that looks at these demographics. So I guess the other part of this is, you're talking about keep the business private. You're saying he's messing up the strategy, but the numbers are the numbers. And he's trying to fix a numerical problem that she has, a math problem that she has.
Right. I agree with most of what you were saying, Solomon. I don't think the problem is that he spoke it out loud. I think the problem is that he singled out Black men. In other words, there is a sexism component to this race. There was a sexism component to the Hillary Clinton-Donald Trump race. Right, if Trump wins, he will have only ever beaten women. I can't give you a number, but sexism is in the mix here. But it's not Black men specifically. I think it's men, not Black men. And that, I think, is part of where Obama went wrong.
And I think
this is interesting how, and I didn't think about that. If Trump wins, he would have only have beaten women. In other words, Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton back in 2016, right? If Donald Trump wins this year, Donald Trump would have beaten Kamala Harris for 2024. That's an interesting mention there. I'll just leave it. I'll leave it at that. That's an interesting mention. Now, I don't know if he's trying to say that Donald Trump can't beat a man, because here's the thing. We all know the argument is clearly that the radical left wants men in women's sports. They want to allow men to basically take full advantage of women. I'm trying to keep it clean here because I don't want to get demonetized on the video, but there's a clear physical advantage that men have over women. And it's almost like a spin on that, because we all know that that's what the Democrats want. They want men in women's sports. And we've all seen how hideous and how horrible that is. And so now this is almost like a curveball method to use that same argument or that same type of issue, cultural issue against Donald Trump, even though it's not physical. This is purely candidate versus candidate in a political race. But that's how I'm seeing him try to spin this thing. And it's I could see a headline coming out in the future, Donald Trump is a woman beater because, he beat Hillary Clinton and Kamala Harris is next or something like that. That's how they would spin this kind of thing. What do y'all think?
We also have to look at numbers and actual statistics, right? Because all of those reliable polling has a small demographic of black men. You're talking about most of them poll at most 40, 50 black men, right?
Well, I don't think in this particular case, just to be clear about what we were looking at there, the exit polls were from the actual elections that we had. And then the Pew polling, Pew looks more closely at specific demographics. Right. And they do that in a way that we, as a news organization, deem to be a reliable way of looking at this. Not every poll is reliable, but we think this one is.
And when you remember now, we had the same conversation 2 years ago about Stacey Abrams. Why won't black men support Stacey Abrams? And after the election was over, we saw the numbers, and black men in Georgia, where I live, supported Stacey Abrams at higher rates than they supported Biden. So we have this narrative, and then you have the truth, and you have this conjecture and
but the candidates are speaking with their actions. Kamala Harris next week is sitting down with Charlemagne the God to talk.
Oh God. Oh my God. I am not looking forward to that, but of course we'll have to cover it. Charlemagne is so, it's almost like anything that Kamala Harris says or does, he'll get behind it. But we'll see how this goes.
Talk to black men. They're being explicit about it. Right. So let me play for you what happened on Charlemagne's show yesterday when they were talking about a call that they had received from a black man in Florida. This was kind of in the context of the storms, but they played the call. Listen.
It don't matter what they is, Democrat, Republican, they all treason, man. They all about money, bro. None of these people care about American people, bro. This shit hurt, bro. This shit hurt, bro. People wake up every day just want to live their life, bro. And you got these greedy snakes, man. You got these greedy snakes call themselves government service people, bro. And they don't give a damn.
Yeah.
And the thing about that call was that, they said it's kind of representative of what they hear often on that show, which is why she's going there.
Well, I think that you have people who are angry. I think that you have people who are planted. I think that you have people who are sent to troll. I think that you have people who are sent with a specific message to deliver to black people. And you see it online. I hear it on the radio. I see it on social media. I see it on our Facebook feed as we're doing our show. And so I think some of that is real, and I think some of it is manufactured. I think some of it is performative. But I do think that there are black men at two ends of the spectrum. There's the old black man that's going to say, well, I'm not going to vote for a woman because the Bible says men should be in charge. Right? There's that guy.
Wow. I forgot about people like that have that ignorant mindset.
But then there's the young black man who only gets his news from social media and nowhere else. And so he's not watching us. He's not listening. He's not reading me or Michael. He's not reading David. He's not doing any of that. His news comes from social media. And so he has a specific point of view and is likely to believe conspiracy theories. The question is, do people who vote...
Oh my God. I don't know what he means by conspiracy theories, but all I can say is if conspiracy from 2020 on forward, from the pandemic forward, think about how many conspiracies have actually been proven to be true. Think about Facebook jail. Think about social media suppression. I'm just saying there are so many conspiracy theories that have been proven to be true, and it was simply because mainstream media didn't want this to be released. Number one, well, not only mainstream media, I mean, you had Mark Zuckerberg coming out recently saying that the FBI and the government forced his hand to suppress certain posts and videos that were showing up on the social media platform. So I'm just saying, like, they often use the term conspiracy theory to make it seem like, oh, well, it's a conspiracy. These are conspiracy theories, so they're less valid. They're less. Basically, you should ignore them. It's almost like a conspiracy theory should automatically, because someone decided to slap a label on a particular story or a particular idea or thought, and immediately discredit it. When we've seen a slew of quote unquote labeled conspiracy theories proven to be 100% factual. And a lot of this wouldn't have ever even been known if it weren't for Elon Musk and how he has allowed a lot of this information to become public information after his purchase and acquisition of Twitter. So shout out to Elon Musk on that one.
So are they on social media or are they on Social Security? I think they're on Social Security.
Well, I think that the problem is that no one's disputing that this government and this country doesn't treat that they treat black men okay, or that we don't have a gripe with either party, right? Because if you talk to black people privately, they will have a gripe with the Democratic Party. The point is, how do you fix
What? Did you hear what he said?
it? And why don't you approach that solution the same way you approach the solution with white people and white women who don't vote Democratic, the white men who don't vote Democratic, the Hispanics who don't vote? Why do you take the specific tact for one demographic and not the entire political strategy that you use for everyone else?
I think the answer is what you said a minute ago, which is that Democrats have to get out of the habit of taking the black vote for granted. Yeah, Trump got 19% of black men, 12% of black people last time around. Like, it's going to be a bigger number this time. Adapt to that. Don't just...
Oh, it's definitely going to be a bigger number this time around. I mean, first of all, the Democratic Party will not get this man's vote. And I'm going to be doing some early voting. I highly, highly recommend you guys do your early voting. Don't wait for Election Day. Vote now. Why wait? There's going to be horrible, long lines. I'm hearing rumors that that, let's just say, things may not go according to plan on Election Day. So don't set yourselves up for failure. Get your vote in right now, and be thoughtful in your vote. I think it's silly to vote for someone purely based on their race, especially if their policies are not going to help you and your family. If they're not going to help you and your family, then what good does it help you at all to have someone who looks kind of like you in the White House? It just doesn't make any sense. Anyway, if you haven't already, please take a second, hit the like button for the video. I totally appreciate you guys. You guys are absolutely awesome. Make sure to share this video. Check out my previous videos, and I'll see y'all next time.